Welcome back, I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We're here at our NYSE CUBE studios, part of the NYSE Wired program. Of course, we have our Palo Alto studios connecting Silicon Valley and Wall Street, tech and money. The NYSE Wired program, the CUBE Original, connects technology and capital markets. Technology is the market. We got our crypto Trailblazers program here. Katie Perry, the CMO of Zerohash, is here in theCUBE. Katie, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's such an exciting day to be building in this space and here at the New York Stock Exchange on such an exciting day.
We had your CEO on, but he's too busy hobnobbing in Davos.
He's on I'm sure he's on a chairlift somewhere with a world leader or something, telling them all about stablecoins.
Yeah, we really enjoyed the last conversation because as we continue to thunder away in the mainstreaming of crypto, stablecoins, distributed architecture are huge. What's the update on Zerohash? What's the status?
Yeah, we've been building. So for those that don't know, we're infrastructure. So any company that essentially wants to do crypto in any capacity, that could mean unlocking trading, it could be payments via stablecoins, it could be tokenization. Sort of the operating system or the layer around that. Similar to how when you pick up a phone, there's different things you're doing on it. There's security protocols, there's applications. Companies that want to start using crypto in the day-to-day, there's a lot of friction to that. There's licenses, there's regulatory hurdles, and then there's the tech. So we essentially make it very, very easy and safe and regulated for companies to level up into crypto as these companies want to start using it not only as an asset to trade, but an actual technology, a new system of moving money.
We have the BitGo IPO this morning, stocks up, nice 20% plus up, nice trajectory. First crypto IPO of the year. Last year we had a nice second half rolling in, looking good in the regulatory environment. A lot of enthusiasm, but there's still the skeptics out there about, well, what does it all mean? It's sometimes hard to follow, just it's pretty complicated. Unpack what's going on in crypto right now, because I think you're already seeing digital. We all have a Venmo-like service. We might, if we have an iPhone, we got Apple Pay. I mean, pay for the subway in New York.
Yep.
Hit up Apple Pay.
No more
No one
cards.
really carries cash, physical paper. I mean, so digital's there, but it's centralized, not decentralized.
Yep.
What is the current state of crypto right now in your mind?
Yeah, well, of course we had the Genius Act go through in the summer, and that really unleashed a lot of demand. At Zerohash, we actually just released a report, and our RFIs related to stablecoins in particular 5x year over year. All of these companies had been sort of thinking about this and preparing and waiting for the moment. And so a big trend that we heard a lot about in Davos when we talked to our CEOs there is how regulation unlocks innovation, not the opposite. So now people are understanding the parameters they can build in, and they're accelerating very quickly. And so this year, a lot of the conversations at Davos, and I'm sure back here in New York at all these banks down the street, is not if they can do it, but how they can do it, how quickly, how they can do it securely in a way that adds customer value. Yeah,
if you look at Davos, one thing I was observing yesterday, I was talking to Brian Bauman at the NYSE about, was that you look at Davos, it's almost a mirror of our society. You got politics and tech. Yeah. Pretty much is the main discussion. And it used to be regulatory capture was a strategy. Now regulatory policy is more entrepreneurial, enabling, try to accelerate that value. What's your reaction to that? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you get into it and get into the conversations with the experts. For example, our chief compliance officer, there's a lot of nuance to legal conversations. And so it's very interesting to hear those types talk about these topics. We had an event with a bunch of brokerages back in the fall and had some big law firms there talking about all these sort of ways that there can be nuance. And so it takes a lot of collaboration, working together and talking things out. And I think you're seeing more of that as everyone is sort of starting to embrace where this place is going. I was at CES last week. I talked to the Blockchain Association, and I asked them, I was like, well, what happens if there's an administration change? Are you worried things are going to revert? Now it's almost apolitical, that crypto is becoming an apolitical layer that things are being built on. And so her point of view is that, you know, it's hard to go back at this point.
Yeah, as they say, the genie's out of the bottle, the horse is out of the barn. Mainstream is seeing it. It's a great sign, and it's not just us versus them, the old OGs in crypto. It's like, okay, fighting all the time, pushing a rock up a hill. It's really now more of the integration of existing systems and then financial technology platforms. BitGo's a tech platform. So you're seeing a lot more services. But I want to ask about your Zerohash opportunity. What specifically are the use cases that you guys see right now that you're going after? Where's that beachhead? What's the main value?
Yeah. Because it's a foundational layer, what's really interesting is there's so many different ways you could use similar pieces of the tech or the compliance structure. But the big places right now, and we heard a lot about this at Davos, was payments. Using stable coins to accelerate, remove friction from payments. Earlier this week, we announced an integration with Gusto. They are a payroll provider. They have 400,000 US-based small businesses. A lot of US-based small businesses are hiring contractors overseas. They now can pay overseas contractors near instantly with stable coins, when that used to take 3 to 7 days on the old rails. So finding ways to just move money quicker and more efficiently. Payments is one. Another is just the large-scale financial institutions. You've tokenization, you've probably heard 20 times come up at Davos, whether it's Larry Fink or other people. How are we tokenizing things like funds, real estate? It's another big area of growth for us.
On the crypto side, one of the hot areas is early adopters, clearly online applications, whether that has community. Gaming is obvious one, creatives. So you're starting to see these currencies already kind of in play, but the businesses are kind of now leaning into it. How do you see that, and how does Zerohash fit into these markets?
Yeah, it's a network effect, right? Because as the platform sort of move to these systems, whether it's for treasury or B2B payments or settlement or for their own customers, they're bringing all their users with them. So one thing in our stablecoin report we just put out was calculated how many stablecoin ready accounts are there? How many possible accounts, individual accounts, could use stablecoins? And based on the current platforms adopting, it's the lower end of that, it's like 1.4 billion. Right. So whereas we walk out on the street and go up to Canal Street, maybe people don't know what stable coins are. There's a good chance that one of the apps on their phones is allowing them to use those, and they might just not know that's what it is. They're just sending money faster. Okay,
so who is your customer? Explain the customer. Who is your customer? How are they engaging?
Yeah, our customers are wide-ranging. We work with Morgan Stanley, Interactive Brokers, Franklin Templeton, some of the largest, most complicated institutions in the world. We also work with Kelshi. Anything real-time where money needs to move quickly and safely. And so it could really have a bunch of different use cases, from brokerages, gaming platforms, and then to your point, digital marketplaces is a really interesting area to watch as well.
So your differentiation is the speed of payments. That's a key aspect?
Our differentiator, I would say, the speed is coming from the underlying blockchain technology. Zerohash has been around since 2017, which is a very long time in crypto. I know BitGo's been around since 2013. So some of these people have been building for a long time, and so you accrue a lot of expertise, a lot of licenses. We're licensed in 50 states, in MiCAR in Europe, and so having the experience, which used to not be as cool in crypto, when these big institutions come on, they want the trust and they want the security, they want the uptime. And so going with someone who's been around for almost a decade is a very big differentiator.
It's interesting, you're hearing the settlement, payments, these are key differentiators for many of the companies we interview. One of the biggest trends on the real assets is stocks. You mentioned real estate as well.
Yep.
These are the low-hanging fruit use cases. BitGo stock went public, now it's on Solana as of today. You got X stocks with Kraken, and so you have now the tokenization of stocks.
Yep.
What does that mean for the average person? Explain this phenomenon.
It's fascinating. So in my prior life, I worked at a brokerage called public.com, and there I was doing issuer relations, and I got really interested in retail investors and how they interact. I'm actually working on a book right now with Wiley called Ticker Shock, and that's going to talk about how retail investors are changing how companies operate. The second to last chapter is about—
What's it called?
Ticker Shock.
Ticker Shock.
You can't buy it yet, so this isn't a real plug. It's a half plug. But the second to last chapter is all about tokenization. I just emailed my editor last night, and I was like, I got to rewrite some of this because the New York Stock Exchange.
Because they had their news.
Yes, so this is really big for global audience of investors, and I talk about this in the book, where the way culture moves globally, and the US has always been a cultural leader, trading stocks is a very American thing to do that now other people in other countries are exposed to it, but sometimes they don't have the infrastructure to do so. Tokenized stocks allow them to do this. It also unlocks 24/7 trading, which is going to make a lot of IR teams potentially nervous, but with more access, you do get more opportunity there.
I can't wait to read the book Ticker Shock, because you mentioned trading is a cultural thing in the US. We were talking before we came on camera about the Super Bowl and online betting. You don't have to name what you're working on if it's confidential, but I do want to bring it up. One of the cultural things that we see going on now is all the betting. the poly market, Kalish, all these areas, you got a prediction market. So you're starting to see the culture, people getting comfortable in, so it's getting better or worse or better, depending on how you look at it. But like, we're not done trading.
No.
So what, does ticker shock go into trading stock or like
the book focuses mainly on the retail investor movement, but how that impacts companies. So how IR teams are structured, how to think about things like, I just walked down the street and saw all the amazing activations for BitGo. An IPO moment is like a product launch now when you're talking about retail investors. It's not just analysts. You got to have merch, you got to have props, you got to have commercials, and so changes the skills you need within the org. So focus is on public companies, but as you call out, it's all starting to sort of blur into, people might own part of a tokenized stock, a real stock, part of a real estate tokenized. It's all in the same thing, and many times in the same portfolio, and that's what Robinhood's trying to do, building a super app.
Yeah, just so you bring up the IR piece and investor relations. One of the benefits of having decentralized environments is the middlemen go away. Okay, so one of the things we've been talking about on theCUBE, kind of related, is that these classic company functions, public relations, analyst relations, investor relations, all had these like groove swings. They had like the playbook.
Yep.
It seems upside down now. The old rules aren't applying. Not only is it you stay in your lane, it's no, we have to work together. So what's your view of this whole roles of how people talk to the public?
Yeah.
If everyone's here online,
it's so
you don't need the old school investor relations strategy.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a product launch.
Well, what's interesting is many companies, you need both, right? You still are taking the big bank meetings and the analyst meetings, and that's a specific type of thing. But then you got to build this whole consumer marketing plan. And what's really complicated, which trips a lot of companies up, is where people are getting their information about stocks is so disparate. They're in LLMs getting information. There's a strategy to show up there. They're in social channels. There's a strategy for that. They're following YouTube videos. And the mix of these channels is different for every company. Palantir is a huge YouTube creators covering them and big on X.
Telegram owns crypto. I mean, 300 million people on Telegram.
Yes.
That's a huge network.
Discord. And so figuring out not just how and what to say, but like the distribution plan is really hard for people who are used to focusing on, okay, these are the 5 people that matter. This is what they care about. I'm going to put together my little pamphlet. We're going to have a nice dinner. It's not like that anymore. Yeah. And it's scary for a lot of companies, but the companies that are seeing the opportunity are really embracing it. Say Palantir is doing an amazing job at connecting with their retail investors. They have one person in his whole job is that. That's his every day. His job is to connect with their retail investors. I think you're going to see more of that in the future.
So if the game is still the same in terms of objective, you want to influence the buyer, or in this case, the retail investor, the tactics have changed. What would be your advice for an IR team or someone trying to go public? What would, is it an omni-channel? There's too many channels.
It's very omni-channel, whatever the next. I think there's a couple things. One is you hear a lot, you kind of have to lead with a personality at times. A lot of people say, how do I get a following like Dr. Karp at Palantir? You have to lean into who you are as a person, but if you notice, the companies are doing it right. Vlad Tenev at Robinhood, Spotify does this. They're doing the earnings call and then they're doing a selfie video that they're putting on Instagram. Walmart even does this now. So figuring out kind of like a broadcast strategy, you're now a media company as well, which is really hard. And I think the other thing is just understanding that retail investors have matured. So for the book, I actually did some research looking into why people follow companies or like their leadership. Number one was trust and a belief in their credibility and their skills. The so-called cool factor, I like this person, they wear a leather jacket, way down at the end of the list. So, people might think Jensen Huang is a cool guy.
I was going to say, Jensen, you're talking about Jensen Huang,
but he happens to also have a lot of street credibility in what he does.
He's got a lot of mojo.
And so I think a big opportunity for these companies is being a thought leader and helping educate, whether it's semiconductors or some of these healthcare stocks, helping educate people about the space in a way that's compelling and interesting and gaining traction that way.
It's interesting. Jensen Huang, I've interviewed him and I've been close to him many times. I've spoken to him many times. And the company, he's original. He never has the same canned answer. He answers he answers every question, whether on a one-on-one or an analyst group meeting, with an original answer. So he's original, he's authentic, and he's trusted. So he's kind of like check those 3 key areas.
I'm sure his comms team loves that. It's mixing up the talking points every time. They love that.
scared. They try to keep me away from them. I asked the tough questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got on the book tangent here. I love the book.
Okay.
What was the motivation for the book?
So I just became fascinated with all this. My first job in finance was at Public, and I was kind of there during the GameStop wave. And so I started in 2019, was there through 2020 and 2021, and it was a community-based app. So just hearing the stories and just living it. Like my dad taught me how to invest when I was 18. I had friends my age that were doing very well in sales and just putting their commission checks in a bank account, because it's just not. Trading wasn't something that was commonplace among certain types of people.
It wasn't like you had schooling and training unless you had someone to mentor you.
And it all changed. To your point about trading is a part of culture. And now it's more things. But back in 2021, stock trading, I had group chats with my girlfriends talking about cosmetics brands they were investing in. Like this kind of thing never happened before, and I became fascinated by it. Yeah. And my background's in marketing, and so I began to think about, wow, marketing is going to play a very interesting role in this future where you're talking to individual human beings who are consumers and investors and not just analysts.
Yeah. Well, you're awesome. I think you're right on it. I think the challenge is get as much content out there in the voice of the brand, the people. The people are the brand.
Within the regulatory guidelines, which is the other challenge, right? You got quiet periods. The internet doesn't know what a quiet period is, right? Reddit doesn't care.
If you have a micro community of hundreds of millions of people, they're not quiet.
Yeah, it's not going to, especially 24/7.
You feed everyone all the food and then go quiet. Let them.
I know.
Let them have the content.
There's a lot of
ways to get around that.
Yes,
I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should take that back. It's a lie. Doesn't matter. No, this is the strategy. I mean, content is not yesterday's content strategy. That you could actually leverage the asset of everyone and with AI coming, it just gets better.
And going back to crypto where we started, a lot of this is inspired by the early crypto communities, which is so interesting to now see them converge. When I talk to people who have been in the community for a while, whether it's Bitcoin, they're like, I used to go to conferences and people were in costumes. Now everyone's in suits. Yeah. And that's been sort of like the shift. And it's sort of come full circle with both sides inspiring and helping the other along the way.
I still remember when we used to give Bitcoin away to people just to get them hooked on it. Like here's a Bitcoin. Like actually,
that never happened to me.
This is like 2014. It's like here's a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I think the community angle is great. Talk about how that affects you guys, because I think word of mouth used to be the kind of the buzzword, but now it's simply community.
Sure.
Communal activities is about relationships.
Yep.
How are you guys seeing community play in Zerohash?
Yeah, it's interesting because Zerohash, we're B2B, we're the infrastructure, right? So we're underlying, but still end consumers that we serve about 7 million end users are doing something with crypto or stablecoins using Zerohash. And so we do have sort of the B2B to C piece. And so for us, it's just about trust, reliability, uptime. Like it's not about necessarily being cool or doing, the best stunt or having a huge billboard in Times Square that's consumer facing. It's like, does the product say it's going to do what it does? Does it work? Is it regulated? Is it safe? And so that's the big, and that's to the credit of our tech and engineering.
You bring up a good point. I remember when I first started covering AWS when it just started. Andy Jassy was an unknown executive. Now he's the CEO of Amazon. I've interviewed many times, but one comment that stood out that I think relates to what you just said is, in the early days of AWS, they were very frugal. They didn't have the swag. Yeah. Google would give out great swag, by the way, and they were always criticized. And his view was, our product, we're infrastructure. If we create value, that gets around fast. So the community for them was product value.
And the stronger the product is, the more invisible it is, which is very an interesting dynamic for a marketer. But you shouldn't really know, right? Especially with stable coins, you should just think my money's getting there faster. You shouldn't think about all this. And so part of what we do is sort of abstract away that complexity, which is, it's an interesting challenge for a marketer because you want to talk about all the things we're doing behind the scenes.
And what they do, I thought was clever, I think you guys are in the same boat, is that their customers did the talking. So their confab, their event, their annual event, which started out small, 6,000 people, that was the marketing.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, I want the better mousetrap because it's so early in the growth, very similar to where you guys are at.
Yeah, and that I think we're in the era of boring crypto, right? Like Zerohash has been around almost a decade, amazing marquee clients. some people haven't heard of us yet. And so my job is to kind of help.
All right, we'll help get the word out. Where can they learn more? What's the key value? Put a plug in for the company.
Sure.
What are you guys working on?
Yeah.
What's the key thing? Get it out there.
So basically any regulated company that wants to trade, transact, tokenize, build with crypto, we've been around for a while. We do it for some of the most complicated companies in the world, as well as some of the fastest moving companies in the world. It's a great team and a great culture. You can learn more about us at zerohash.com, and we just put out a 50-page report book on stablecoins. If you're into charts and data, there's a lot there for you to geek out on. And
the most important benefit of stablecoins is what?
Say the speed at which money can move in a secure fashion without the friction. Yeah. It's just a new system of rails that money can move on. And most people will never have to worry about the blockchain technology underlying it.
It's visible.
Built in.
And boring can be good and lucrative. Katy Perry is here on theCUBE, part of our crypto trailblazers and our BitGo IPO coverage as crypto continues to go mainstream. Things that go invisible that we all want to go away, but ease of use comes to payments, whether you're doing a simple transaction and having it reliable and distributed is the key. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, John Furrier.